All right, man, peace. So for you cats out there who've been following the NBA's Black Lesbians Matter bubble tournament, you'll know that right now, one of the storylines that's being promoted and propagated across the mainstream liberal sports media is whether or not Damian Lillard is a superstar. In my view, just the fact that it's a conversation means that he's not. Very similar to the notion that if you have to discuss whether or not a former NFL player is a Hall of Famer, he probably isn't. It's the same thing with the concept of a superstar. If someone's really a superstar, you never have to discuss it. So the fact that he recently was awarded the quote-unquote MVP of the NBA's bubble tournament should let everyone know that he's not someone who's taken necessarily very seriously when it comes to consideration as the best player in the NBA. Because most of the truly great players in the NBA, well, I should say most of the truly great superstars or bubble superstars in the NBA who are near superstar status had to sit out certain games because they already had their teams locked up to make the playoffs. Dame had to fight and scrap just to get his team the opportunity to make the playoffs because he's not a superstar. Despite the fact that his team has suffered major injuries over the course of this season, just the fact that his team was so far behind and they had to rally to get to this point should show you that he's not a real superstar yet. When I say a superstar, I'm talking about those type of players that a team can hitch their wagon to his star and get a guaranteed 50 wins as long as he's healthy for the entire season. Dame is just not that guy. But if you're talking about a player who can explode, who can get hot and score 50, 55, 60 points in a game, Dame Lillard is that person. A superstar to me is on a whole other level. He has to dominate over the course of the regular season and into the postseason. And over the last 8 years, there are only 4 players in the NBA who have done that. That's LeBron James, KD, Stephen Curry, Kawhi Leonard. That's it. Those are the 4 superstars. Now in my strata for bubble superstar, the highest level bubble superstars in my view are James Harden and Giannis Antetokounmpo. Those are the 2 guys who are really on the cusp of entering into that top level. Dame is not even close to entering into the top level because he has not been successful enough in the regular or the postseason. Right now, he's just trying to make his fame, per se. He's made his name already, but he's trying to make his fame right now. So we'll see how he goes in the playoffs. But the real question is, was he the real bubble MVP or did someone else get robbed? I'll say this. Over the course of the last 30 years that I've been watching basketball, the MVP award is as much about narrative as it is about who's the best player. So that means that the MVP normally goes to the best player on the best team with the best story. That's why you had Karl Malone win it a couple of times. That's why you had Charles Barkley win it. That's why you had Russell Westbrook win it a few years ago. James Harden. I don't think that anyone considered them the best players in the NBA, but they were great players who dominated the league for that season, led their team to a higher amount of wins than maybe they were esteemed to win. So they deserved it from the standpoint of that individual season. So when we evaluate the course of the NBA's Black Lesbians Matter bubble tournament over these last 8 games, we have to ask ourselves, does Dame Lillard actually deserve the MVP award, or could it go to someone else? In my view, I have no problem with Dame getting the award because I know that he's been a major part of the NBA's narrative. He's at the peak of his career, 30 years old. And the NBA is pretty much looking at him as a guy who, maybe we can cast him as a sympathetic figure. He's someone, he's like a great character actor in a film. He's never going to get the starring role, but he's one of those guys that you always remember, when he has that small role. Like a Bill Paxton in Aliens, or, like a Steve Buscemi, somebody like that. That's Dame. He's not going to be the starring role. So to me, this is the NBA's version of giving out a Best Supporting Actor award. Because they know Dame's never going to win a championship, or at least most likely never going to win a championship. But in my view, if you were to really evaluate how the bubble tournament has gone, and just go strictly by how well the team has performed, and how well the top player on that team has performed, you'd have to give it to Devin Booker. But I understand why Dame was given that award and why people have been clamoring so much for him to get that bubble tournament MVP. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Although, Skip, I don't know how Dame is going to feel about doing that.
Yes.
Here's the thing. We do have playoff basketball today, but who has been the best in the bubble so far? Damian Lillard. Dame's hot streak in Orlando was capped off when he was named the unanimous MVP in the bubble over the weekend. Dame willed the Blazers into the A seed by averaging 37.6 points that included games of 42, 51, and 61.
I have to give Dame credit. He made some plays over the course of this bubble tournament that really made me say, wow. That dunk, that little sneak dunk he had over Valanciunas, that surprised me. People forget, Dame was in the dunk contest a few years ago. I can't remember which season. It might have been 2015 or 2014, but he used to enter the dunk contest. Now, does that still mean that I would take him over Devin Booker as the MVP of this tournament? That's nip and tuck. Devin Booker probably had the best dunk of the tournament when he went left and dunked over two guys. I can't remember which game that was, but that was like, wow. He has sneaky great athleticism, Devin Booker does.
Did Dame deserve MVP?
Absolutely. I don't know really who else they could have given it to you.
Shannon Sharp is on his fanboy shit as usual. For you to say that you don't know who else they could have given it to, look, I have no problem with anyone saying Dame Lillard is the MVP of the bubble. But to say you have no idea who else they could have given it to, come on, man.
That he led the bubble in scoring. He was third in assists while leading his team. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they were 3.5 games behind Memphis. And not only did they get to the play-in game, they ended up taking over the number 8 seed, which meaning they would only have to win one game. Skip, if you look at what he's been able to do, especially over the last 3 games, he goes 51-7, he goes 61-8, and he goes 42-12. That's a clip of 51 points per game, 9 assists per game. And they won those 3 games by a grand total of 7 points. He saved his best for last. 4 of the 8 highest scoring games in the bubble, he had those. He created the most points in the bubble, 61 points a game. Fourth quarter, Skip loves fourth quarter. He led in fourth quarter scoring. He led in fourth quarter assists. And he got his team in the bubble. And he caught some criticism because I thought he was like, well, if we ain't got anything to play for, I'm not going to play. And he was saying, give me an opportunity. If I go down there for these 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
Either he was saying, give me an opportunity, or that was part of the script that he was supposed to put forth so that the NBA could, in a roundabout way, force him to come to create this overall narrative of Dame Lillard being the little engine that could.
Give me an opportunity to get my team into the playoffs, and I can live whatever results come of that. And he did it. He got his team into the playoffs. 89% from the free throw line. He was special, Skip. He was special. He showed you that he's a superstar.
No, he hasn't, Shannon Sharp. Players don't prove their superstardom by getting their team into the playoffs. They prove their superstardom by pushing forth throughout the playoffs, into the deep rounds, into the championship round, and finally winning the championship. And I'm consistent with this. I've stated many times, not only on Patreon, but also on YouTube. I don't consider Michael Jordan one of the superstars of the 1980s. And when I say superstars, I mean superstar player. He was a superstar performer. But to get to that next level of being a superstar player, your playing style has to be conducive to making sure that you maximize the efforts of your teammates. That's why it was so pivotal throughout that 90-91 season that Phil Jackson constantly implored Michael Jordan to find John Paxson, to empower Bill Cartwright. That's when he became a superstar player. Now, if you want to see someone excite you like you've never been excited before watching a basketball player, go watch Michael Jordan in the 1980s. But if you want to see a player who was able to really create the archetype of the wing player who could dominate scoring and also win basketball games, it's the Michael Jordan of the 1990s. So no, Dame Lillard is not a superstar player. He's not even really close to it right now. He's at the very bottom rung of that bubble superstar strata that I described.
Superstars, that's what they do.
No, what they do is win championships.
When their number 2 guy, CJ, struggled in games, he brought him home. So for me, it was, I don't really understand who else could have gotten this award, considering that he was up near at the top in every statistical category as far as offensively. And so for me, it was a no-brainer.
Yes, it was a no-brainer. Because you have no brain, bro. I mean, come on. Once again, you could pick Dame, but to say you can't see anyone else, you can't see anyone else because you have blinders on.
Dame time. The Dame Dollar, the great Dame, whatever adjective you want to use to describe it, Skip. He's it now.
Really?
Yeah.
I got to get a new TV.
You need to.
I either got to get that or I got to get new LASIK, because I thought I was like 2015 vision, but something's wrong with my TV.
No, you're
because I
looking
saw
at the year 2015.
very games than you saw.
Okay.
You carefully omitted all of Dame Time's flameouts, all that he did not do in the bubble. And you also failed to mention the guy who should have been the MVP, Devin Booker, who...
Devin Booker's coming, man. He's coming. They finally have the right coach to bring out the best in that team. And I mean, not to speak from a three-dimensional level, per se, but the Phoenix Suns franchise has always been esoteric, to put it lightly. So there may be some narrative that they're presently trying to script for that team involving Booker and the Suns. Please keep in mind that he's dating a Kardashian. So it would not surprise me if maybe he's being instructed on how to tap into certain energies to raise his level of proficiency. We'll see how things go with that. But Monty Williams, I've never understood why it took him so long to get another job. Who knows what the reason was. I never thought that he should have been fired from New Orleans, because he was the coach who was able to get them into the playoffs back in 2015, to square off against the Warriors when the Warriors went on their first championship run. And then after the playoffs, after they get swept in the opening round, they fired Monty Williams and replaced him with old troutmouth Alvin Gentry, who's a coordinator masquerading as a head coach if I've ever seen one. And now we see what Monty Williams has been able to do with the Phoenix Suns. They're on their way. Watch out for them. If I'm the NBA, not to digress, but I'm really thinking about realigning the league. Maybe take Memphis and move them to the Eastern Conference, which is where they belong anyway. Memphis, Tennessee is on the eastern portion of the United States. I have no idea why they still keep them in the Western Conference. Of course, we know they started out as the Vancouver Grizzlies. That's why they started out in the Western Conference. But it's high time to move them into the East. I might even think about moving New Orleans into the East and starting to, contract the NBA. I think that it would be best for the league if they started talks on contraction, because what we're seeing in the NBA bubble tournament are teams that are more desperate, playing harder, and I think that it would raise the appeal of the league if there were about 4 less teams and they realign the league. But we'll see what happens with that.
Took over a much younger team than Dame's team and led it to 8-0, beating 7 of 8 playoff teams by a margin of victory that was 13 a game.
Yeah, they were dominating. The Phoenix Suns, they were dominating.
Dame's and company's 3 a game.
Right.
So they just basically crushed everybody they played. And against the Clippers, who I think is the best team in the bubble, the Clippers, it goes to the last shot, and it became the shot, the most memorable clutch shot of the bubble was shot by, here we go, that.
Beautiful footwork there also. That was some Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant type maneuvers there by Devin Booker. He has it all. So it's only a matter of time when it comes to Devin Booker and how much work he's willing to put in to become even greater.
Over Paul George.
And Kawhi.
That's the one that I will remember as the shot. I give you logo Lillards and various dunks that would trend all over the place on Twitter, but that one was a money shot.
Well, Devin Booker had the best dunk of the tournament.
It's the same team who clowned and ridiculed Damian Lillard for coming up so small in the fourth quarter and down the stretch against their backups. No Kawhi, no Paul George in the fourth quarter, and he couldn't even overcome the backups. With a 5-point lead with 2 minutes left, he lost to the Clippers backups by missing a 3 and obviously missing 2 key free throws.
People call Skip Bayless a hater. What Skip Bayless does is he shines a light on the dark corners that most people don't want to investigate, because so many people are interested in idolizing, certain players who are not really fit to be placed in that level of light. And don't get it twisted. Skip has his share of idols as well. There's no doubt about it. But he tends to pick his idols a little bit better than others do.
Even against the Clippers, it was so shockingly different that's Devin Booker time. It's not Dame time. And I'm sorry, but I look at the totality of what Damian didn't do. And by the way, you just made a comment, he saved his best for last. Can I go to the last? Mm-hmm. Do you realize that in the bubble, over Damian's last 19 minutes and 12 seconds of 2 fourth quarters, one against Brooklyn, one against Memphis, 19 minutes and 12 seconds, he didn't score a field goal. The guy you say, it's not even close, it's a no-brainer, did not score a field goal for...
What I also noticed about Dame, since Skip brings that up, I mentioned this in another video, he has a lot of James Harden in him. And what I mean by that is, many times he's more concerned about trying to draw the foul than he is in making the jump shot. And to me, that's a reflection of a lack of basketball integrity. Go up trying to make the fucking shot. Stop going up thinking about getting fouled.
7-12 against Brooklyn, and it was in a down-to-the-wire shootout. He scored 3 free throws that were bogus, unwarranted, wrong.
Are those points?
Yes, he got 3 points, but he did not make a field goal. And then in Saturday's fourth quarter, another shootout with Memphis, down to the wire, do or die both games.
What did he do?
Damian Lillard played all 12 minutes of the fourth quarter and went 0 for 1 from the field. 0 for 1 from the field? And you say he's the runaway MVP? What MVP goes 12 straight minutes without scoring a basket? I just sat there in awe. What MVP doesn't shoot in the fourth quarter? What MVP takes 1 shot in the fourth quarter? And by the way, guess who was lighting?
Well, Dame is the MVP of his team. He's just nowhere near the MVP of the NBA.
And saving his bacon. CJ stood for a clutch jumper because CJ hit the big 3 to tie with 3:08 left. He hit the big 3 to put them up 4 with 150 left. He hit another jumper with 121 to put them up 6.
CJ owed him.
And guess what? Carmelo finally owed him because he made the dagger shot that put them up 6 with 21 seconds left.
You don't mind me.
Let me say this very quickly. The Portland Trail Blazers have enough to push the LA Laker team to 7 games. That series should be no less than a 7-game series if the Blazers lose.
Who assisted?
At the worst, 6 games. But if Dame loses in 5 games or less, 5 games or fewer, I no longer want to hear any of this notion of Dame Lillard even possibly being a superstar player in the NBA. Because he's not, at least according to my criteria. But at least if he were to defeat LeBron James and Anthony Davis in the first round, because everyone's trying to build this as 1 versus 8, this is really 1 versus 4 in the first round. Because the Portland Trail Blazers have 4 seed level talent on their squad. So this should be very competitive.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up because Damian Lillard drives into the paint. I think, well, he's at least going to get to the foul line. And at the last second, he kicks it out to the Carmelo, who at that point was 0 for 5 from the 3-point line. Is that the right basketball play?
Yeah.
That actually is the right play. People forget Dame is a point guard. He's not a shooting guard, even though you can really call him a combo guard, as most of these guards are. He's a point guard. And he has made more of a concerted attempt to empower his teammates, and that's a great thing. I've always said my main criticism of Dame to me is that he averages too many points. I think that if his points per game fell to around 23, 24, that his team would be much better, especially if his assists were to go up to around 9 or 10, maybe even 11 per game, because he has that ability as a passer. Now this season, I think that he might be around a career high of around 8 assists per game. If I'm wrong about that, one of you brothers correct me, but I think that he had his career high in assists per game this year at around 8 per game. So I think that as that goes up, the viability of his team to possibly be a championship contender is going to go up.
Just like a panic play. I'll throw it out there to Melo.
Skip.
Who wants to feed the guy who's 0 for 5? And I was like, don't do that.
Hold on.
He's 0 for 5, and he made it.
But you heard, but you hear Portland say,
wow,
they're not surprised by what Melo is doing, considering he's a Hall of Famer. He's this, he's that. So why not have trust? He's on the floor in the fourth quarter for a reason. That seems to be their closing lineup.
Yeah, I had no problem with that play right there. I mean, Carmelo has been another player over the past 15, 16 years or so that people have assigned the term superstar to, that I think that they've assigned that term incorrectly. But at the very least, at this point in his career, with the experience and the years that he's logged, he should be trusted to be able to make a wide open spot up jump shot. I mean, I don't think that was a bad play.
have Nurkic, they're going to have Melo, they're going to have Trent, and they're going to have those two outstanding guards. Skip, you look at it where he didn't score a basket, but Dame Lillard had 5 points, 5 of 5 from the free throw line with 3 assists. So,
what superstar shoots one time in the fourth quarter of a shootout, do-or-die game?
Skip, you saw him trapping him, getting the ball out of his hand. You saw that. And then
if you're a superstar, you cannot be trapped.
Yeah, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
LeBron cannot be trapped. Michael Jordan could not be trapped.
Right, but Michael Jordan is a shooting guard. LeBron James is a small forward. Dame Lillard is not on that level, but I understand what Skip is doing here. Skip has already told Shannon, since you're going to call him a superstar, I'm going to hold him to a superstar standard of performance. And this is where, once again, Shannon Sharpe has stepped in it because he's so worried about, trying to attain these relationships with certain players in the league. And I think that there's a deeper meaning to why Shannon has jumped on the Dame Lillard bandwagon that I'll be covering in the aftermath of the Carmelo Anthony video that I'm doing. That being that Dame Lillard is a Luciferian. And Shannon Sharpe is definitely a Luciferian and Boule. But I'll be going over all of that in the aftermath of the Carmelo Anthony video that I'm doing. But once again, I see what Skip is doing right now. He's saying, you know what? Since you're going to call this guy a superstar, I'm going to evaluate him the same way that I would evaluate other superstars.
And basically they said, look, we're going to make someone else other than Dame beat us. And Gary Trent Jr. hit some big threes. You mentioned CJ hit some big threes, hit a big 2. Melo hit a big 3. Skip, you can live with that if someone other than Dame beats you. But here's the thing. He averaged 7 more points a game than Booker. He averaged more assists per game than Booker. He shot the 3 at a higher clip, although shooting double the amount of threes than Booker shot. He shot 12% higher from the 3-point line, though he doubled him up in 3-point attempts.
Who shot better from the field?
Okay, so
Devin Booker, a jump shooter.
Skip, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to nitpick. Devin Booker was about 50.2. Dame Lillard was 49.7.
It's very interesting that you decide to use that term nitpick when Skip Bayless notes that Devin Booker has a higher overall shooting percentage than Dame Lillard, even though it's only by, 0.5 of a point. The reason why I say that is because that's pretty much the same difference between Michael Jordan's career shooting percentage and LeBron James. But you yourself have made the claim that LeBron James shoots a higher percentage from the field than Michael Jordan. So basically you've outed yourself as a nitpicker when you're trying to prove your little flimsy point about LeBron James being the greatest of all time. Even though we know that LeBron has taken far more layups and drives to the basket than Michael Jordan. So we know who the better overall shooter is. We know that it's Michael Jordan. But just getting back to the point of this debate right here, I think that what Skip is trying to say is that Devin has been so proficient that he has not needed to score as many points as Dame because he's put his team in a better position to win with his timely baskets.
Nitpick that. But hey, let me tell you how this game really came down to, Skip. I know a lot of people don't remember this, but the last game before we stopped playing, you know what happened, right? Portland beat Phoenix. And that was the difference in the ball. That was the difference between Phoenix not getting in the play.
Right, but why are we speaking about this when we're trying to evaluate who's the MVP of the bubble tournament? Why are we talking about this for?
And not playing, Portland as opposed to Memphis.
Doesn't count in the bubble.
Thank you, sir.
But so what we did, what does count in the bubble, if you don't mind me asking, at the end, Friday, I think it was Friday, what did Phoenix do with their bags? They packed up and they went back to Phoenix. Dame Lillard had a game to prepare for on Saturday in which he won, and he's getting ready to play the Lakers on Tuesday.
All that's cool, but we're talking about who the MVP is of the bubble. So if you want to say that Dame was able to cement his MVP accolade in that last bubble game against Memphis, you can say that if you want to. But at the end of the day, Devin Booker was far more proficient, and his team was far more successful than Dame's team. But I understand why they gave it to Dame. At the end of the day, that's pretty much his consolation prize as a player. No disrespect to Dame, but he's pretty much made a name for himself over the past 8 years, begging to have himself be put onto all-star rosters and begging to have himself be an all-NBA player. I mean, he's kind of been shameless with it. No disrespect. So the NBA has kind of thrown Dame bones here and there.
This. What more could Phoenix have done in the bubble? What more?
I don't know what it is.
No? Are you kidding me? They own the bubble. They control the bubble.
No.
They won by 13 points a game. against 7 out of 8 playoff teams. The other game was against Washington.
Shannon has that look on his face like, damn, this man kicking my ass today.
Is spectacular, and that was mostly about Devin Booker.
Dame Lillard scored more points than anybody else over the final 3 games of the regular season. Now think about these great scores. Wilt Chamberlain.
You mean the final 3 games of the bubble tournament?
Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, George Gervin. He's 20 points clear over his last 3 games, the final 3 games of a season, than any of the greatest scorers in NBA history.
Right, but do we really count that? Especially since they're playing on a neutral site? Do we really count that? I think that what's occurring in the bubble tournament should have a statistical category all its own. I'm not looking at Dame Lillard score 61 against the Dallas Mavericks on a neutral site and holding that, in the same esteem as Kobe scoring, 81 points or 65 points or any of his performances, or Michael Jordan scoring 69 in Cleveland or what have you. I'm just not.
They say, you know what, Skip, and he's playing 42 minutes. He dropped another almost 45 minutes. So he cannot rest. It reminds me of when LeBron was back in Cleveland, Skip, and he could only take 10 seconds at a time or 30 seconds at a time. Yeah, you see the numbers. 45 minutes in a 48-minute ball game, which is unheard of in today's time. But that's what he's willing to do, and he gave you.
It's unheard of in today's time. I don't think that it's unheard of when you have a star player on the squad who's on a team that's desperate to make the playoffs. That's actually rather commonplace. Kobe Bryant went down, as we all know, because he was playing 47 and a half minutes per game down the stretch of the 2012-2013 season. That was only 7 years ago.
What do you do? Drop down on him? 31? Oh, this old measly 31 points. He make me sick, them old little pedestrian 31.
That was a great dunk right there. Show you that he has very strong hands, too.
What I'm supposed to do with that?
So, what am I supposed to do with what Damian Lillard did not do in crunch time again and again and again that Devin Booker consistently clutched out? What am I supposed to do with their first loss? Portland's first loss came to Boston.
Yes.
And in that game, thanks to Gary Trent Jr.'s 3, that's when we were first discovering Gary Trent Jr.
Correct.
They were first discovering him. He hits a 3 with 1:57 left to put them up 1 point. What did Damian do down the stretch of that game? Nothing. He took a shot with 53 seconds left, a 3-point shot, and he missed it, and that was to tie the game, and they lost by 4. So he came up very small in their first loss, first of 2 losses. Then came the Clippers loss, which I mentioned before, and remember, that's no Kawhi and no Paul George down. That he barely played in the fourth quarter, and they were up 5 with 2:58 left. Well, if you're telling me he's the MVP of the bubble, it's only 8 games. That's one you have to close against the Clipper backups. How do you explain they lost by 5? They're up by 5 with 2:58 left. They lose by 5. How do you justify he is the no-brainer runaway MVP when that happened against a team that we all consider a challenger, a contender? How do you explain that with 41 seconds left, he did make a driving layup to put them up 2, but...
I mean, no disrespect to Dame, but really, for you to get the bubble MVP award, that's almost like winning the best player on the JV squad award. That's for players who are in the process of growth, because just to play that hard in the bubble tournament, your team has to be on the outside looking in. That's why when we think of the players who were in contention to win that award, it was a player on a team or players on teams who were fighting to make the playoffs. Devin Booker, Dame Lillard, because most of the top players in the NBA, the real superstars, were taking games off.
18 seconds left. He missed both free throws, and Pat Bev and Paul George are all over him doing this to him because they don't respect him, because he hasn't yet earned the respect, especially in the postseason.
So what does Pat Bev and Paul George earn?
Who's comparing them to Dame Lillard or any other superstar in the NBA? Paul George, I would say, is right on the level of a Dame Lillard, though. I will give him that. But to claim that anyone has said that Pat Beverly is on the level of a Dame Lillard, no one's ever said that. But I do know this. I hear far fewer people trying to make the claim that Paul George is a superstar than the people who are currently trying to make that claim for Dame.
It just doesn't matter. They're looking at him saying, what have you earned, but superstar?
Yeah, Pat, I mean, Dame was right. He just sent Paul George packing and made him.
Right, but at the end of the day, what does that really mean? You brag about who you sent packing when you win championships. How the hell you going to brag that much about who you sent packing and then you got sent packing a round or two later? Who cares?
Join a super team. That's what Dame has done.
In a crucial game for them, a game that they could have won, should have won, to just put them over the top with, so they wouldn't have had to sweat down the stretch. Then he has a 3 to tie with 9 seconds left and missed that. So you can't tell me MVP off that, and you can't tell me MVP off the Brooklyn game when he goes 7-12, the last 7-12, and he just makes those 3 cheap, undeserved free throws. That's all he did. And
He deserved it.
And that's a game that he even missed a 15-footer down the stretch of that game to put them up 4. That could have been the dagger shot. I just, again and again, he came up even smaller than he is down the
Why Skip got to be so disrespectful for?
these games.
So-
He would have salvos of spectacular play, spectacular scoring, logo Lillard threes, dunks, all sorts of highlight shots.
You told me the only thing that matters is the playoffs. One guy got his team into the playoffs, the other guy didn't.
Okay, but
Right, but the other guy, it wasn't like the other guy went 5-3 in the bubble, or even 7-1 in the bubble. He went 8-0. So let's not bring up it's about making the playoffs or not making the playoffs. He maximized what he could possibly bring to the table. Right now, once again, I have no problem with Dame Lillard, but the overall best player and best team in the tournament, when we look at the metrics and the level of success, was the Phoenix Suns. But the Phoenix Suns, their future is coming next season and the season subsequent to that. Dame is in win now mode. So, I mean, let's just be clear. When Dame is getting evaluated, the players that he's getting evaluated against are Devin Booker and, other players on the come up. And that's not where he should be. He's supposed to be getting evaluated alongside the James Hardens and the Stephen Currys and the LeBron Jameses. And you guys are trying to force that fake narrative, and it's not going to work because he doesn't have the successes. He does not have the personal accolades.
had a leg up to get to the playoffs, right? He had a better record going in. He had a better chance. The other team couldn't have done better than it did.
Right.
This team went 6-2 to get into the playoff for the playoffs.
You say your guy, okay, in fourth quarter double-digit scoring, Dame Lillard had 5 of his 8 games. He scored in double figures in the fourth quarter.
All right.
Devin Booker had one of those games. Devin Booker was 11th in fourth quarter scoring. Dame Lillard was number 1. Book was 7th in assists.
And that was because they were crushing people.
Ding. Simple as that. That's why you just can't look at numbers, Shannon Sharp.
He had one close game against a really good team that was playing its stars to the close. He made the shot of shots, the one that we'll all remember. It was the most memorable and momentous shot of the tournament because it.
Shannon Sharp, just throw in the towel, bro. Skip has whooped your ass over the course of this debate. Just throw in the towel. It's okay.
That Phoenix has arrived.
Well, if you don't remember 61-8, I don't know what to tell you. If you don't remember 51-7, I don't know what to tell you. If you can't remember 42-12.
Yeah. Well, do you remember what happened at the end of Boston, Clippers, Brooklyn, Memphis? There's 4 games that you get MVP off of, and I'm just dumbfounded because I'm just sitting here. I'm not nitpicking. I'm just saying, show me.
Let me ask you a question. Did he arrive at the destination unscathed?
Unscathed?
Yes.
He arrived at the destination, but I would not say that he was unscathed. I mean, they did lose, and it did come down to the last game of the season, basically. But, I give him his credit. But the brother has a lot to prove.
It took him there on Saturday.
Oh, their teammates.
Well, come on. In the
Who led
fourth
the
quarter,
scoring?
he goes 0
Who led the
for 1.
scoring?
0 for 1 in the fourth quarter. Really?
Hold on. Hold on. I think CJ owed him. I think CJ owed him. Because remember how he was lugging around there with that bad back? And that man was dropping 61?
Well, now he owes CJ.
Let the record show CJ McCollum was the best player on the floor last year in Game 7 against the Denver Nuggets in Denver. It was CJ who carried them in that game as well.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Sure you want to do that?
Well, I just told you why. CJ made 3 straight clutch shots. Clutch jumpers, CJ.
Okay. he had the advantage because Ja Morant, although he was spectacular, he's not a defensive guy. And you see what they did. So whomever Ja was great at,
Ja's going to be a major problem in the next few years. A major problem.
pick and roll. And you heard what CJ said. He can't guard me. He can't guard me. So that's what you do. You find a weak link, and that's what teams are going to do. You got to find a weak link. The problem was, Skip, with Memphis, the reason why they didn't win this game, you got to make Dame, you got to make Dame work. You got to find somebody that can go at Dame and make him spend some energy on the defensive end.
That's a great point. One of the few great points that Shannon has made over the course of this debate. Dillon Brooks, that dude has to get one of those coaches who can help him improve his dribbling. He has a terrible handle. He can barely dribble the basketball up the floor. He can barely dribble without looking at the basketball. In 2020, you're an off guard. You have to be able to put the ball on the floor. Bottom line. So that would take a lot of pressure off of Ja Morant if Dillon Brooks can expand his game.
Memphis didn't have anybody because they put Dame is going to take somebody. He's not going to guard Ja because Ja's going to try to put him work and pick and roll him and try to get to the basket. So you got to let him rest because you can't play 45 minutes on both ends of the court. Nobody's been that good to be able to exert that kind of energy on the defensive end while trying to give you that kind of offensive output.
Lies. Michael Jordan. A young Michael Jordan could do it.
Yeah, when you look at this, I like that trophy too. That little trophy Dave got. Hey, Dave, take another picture of that trophy and send it to your boy. Let your boy get another look at it.
Really? Oh, now you're
Shannon Sharp, professional groupie.
right. You belong to him. I thought it was all about.
Hey, yo, Skip be calling Shannon out. Oh, you're another guy's bitch now. Wow. That's interesting.
No, Skip, don't do that.
Okay.
Don't do that. Because what I have to do is that I have to put some righteousness on you.
Bro, there's nothing righteous about you. You're a toxic black liberal. Just knock it off.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to diminish this man after this man
How am I
had 30.
trying to?
Diminish what? What has he won? Like, bro, what are you talking about? I think that he has one first-team All-NBA in his 8 years in the league. That's not a superstar player. Now, he might get another first-team All-NBA this season. We'll see. I'm not sure. They might give it to Luka. Luka had a better season overall. His team had a better record. So we'll see what happens. But Dame, they may put him in the running. He's probably going to end up second team. But what has he won that people are claiming that so many other people are hating on him? Like, come on.
Because he averaged 37 and 6.
Okay, just justify this for me. What, Mr. MVP?
Yes.
How do you go almost 20 minutes of the last two fourth quarters you played, the last 20 minutes and two fourth quarters, and you score no field goals and you're the MVP? How are you a superstar if you go 20 minutes? It's unheard of. It's impossible.
Are free throws points? Hold on. Remember, you have, as great players, you have to find other ways to impact the ball game if you're not necessarily scoring at the clip that we're used to seeing you score. Did he not have a huge steal on Karis LeVert? He had another couple of steals on Saturday. So he's impacting the game all.
To Shannon's credit, he is pointing out certain points that are definitely of note. I will say this, Dame has been trying to give greater effort on defense. And some of the steals that he made, especially the one that he mentioned against Karis LeVert where he dove for the ball, astounding. Excellent, hard play by a player who needs to lead his team in that way to inspire his team to actually play a little bit of defense.
He's not scoring. He's not impacting the game, in which we're typically used to seeing Dame Lillard drop 22 in the fourth quarter or drop 15 in the fourth quarter. So he didn't necessarily impact the game with his scoring, but he did impact the game by scoring, by facilitating others to score, and by taking the ball away from them and keeping them from scoring. So his impact, his thumbprint was all over that.
That's called rationalizing.
Oh, my God.
I just want our viewers to let this sink in, that he went from scoring 61 points in a game to the last 7-12 against Brooklyn, then the last 12 minutes against Memphis on Saturday. That's almost 20 minutes of play in the fourth quarter, and he scored no baskets.
I'm glad Dame.
Wow.
I'm glad Dame is to the realization where he doesn't try and force it. He's like, okay, you want to trap me at half court?
And that's one of the main reasons why his shooting percentage has gone up this year. He's shot 46% this year, which really many times with these great players in the NBA, the main difference between a player shooting 43.5% or shooting 47% is based in shot selection. That's why I state that without a shadow of a doubt in my mind, Steph Curry is definitely the best shooter of the last 30 years because this guy takes some terrible shots, quote-unquote terrible shots. And at the end of the season, he's still shooting anywhere between 47 and 50%, which shows you how outstanding a shooter he really is. Dame Lillard finally broke through and shot over 45% this year because he's moving the ball a little bit better. So that has allowed his shooting percentage to go up because he's using greater discretion in what type of shots he takes.
What? I'll feed Greg Trent Jr. and let him bang your eyes out. You want to try the guys meet me at the rim with Valanciunas? I'm going to kick the Melo for a wide open three. Skip, you make the right play and you live with the results. Now, you got to realize Melo is a top 20 all-time scorer in the NBA history. He has 3 gold medals.
Okay.
He's been all NBA.
I'll say this also about Melo. If he plays next season, which I expect him to, and has a prominent role, all he has to do is score about 1,100 more points. He's going to leapfrog about 7 dudes next year in the all-time NBA scoring list.
He's been to the All-Star game. He was an MVP candidate one
Okay,
year.
I'm glad you brought that up. So Damian Lillard had Melo, that guy, future Hall of Famer, cinch Hall of Famer.
Yes.
And he had CJ.
Yes.
And he had Nurkic playing inspired after the loss of his grandmother, obviously, to COVID as he played on Saturday.
Yes.
And that team's, it's pretty good. Gary Trent Jr. looks really good.
Yes.
And Devin Booker had none of this kind of help.
DeAndre ain't in it.
Great point, Skip Bayless. Great point. Devin Booker certainly has less help than Damian Lillard, but you know what? That's neither here nor there. They gave Damian the bubble MVP, which is a very apt name because he is a bubble superstar. So he deserves a bubble MVP. And leave it at that, because that is going to be his consolation prize for the rest of this season and maybe for his career, unless Portland goes on a magic carpet ride like we've never seen before.
He's starting to come.
Okay.
Is he better than Nurkic right now? No, he's not.
No.
No, he's just not. Sorry. Is he better than Hassan Whiteside right now?
Yeah.
Nope, he's not. I don't think he is.
Yeah, okay.
It's close. It's close. But I'd probably take Aiden because Aiden plays harder and runs the floor better.
I'll take Beyond. But Skip, here's the thing. Is Dame Lillard, you do realize like Dame Lillard plays a team sport. So in other words, he's allowed to have teammates and they're allowed to do their job, which is sometimes they have to score, sometimes they have to rebound, sometimes they have to assist, sometimes they have to block shot, take charges. That's what teammates do. He doesn't play an individual sport. This is not tennis. This is not golf.
But this,
Right, but Shannon Sharp, I think the point that Skip is trying to make, even though he goes way too far with it, what Skip is trying to say is that in order for Dame to deserve the praise that he's currently being lavished with by so many members of the NBA media, he has to do something. He has to impact the playoffs in a very, very powerful way. You know, the reason why we call Isaiah Thomas an all-time great is not because of what he did in the last 5 games of any regular season. It's because of what he did in the playoffs. Great moments that we still remember to this day. Scoring 16 points in a minute 33 seconds against the Knicks in 1984. Or going out there in 1988 and scoring 25 points in a quarter in the NBA Finals. Like, that's what we remember. Winning the NBA Finals MVP in 1990. To this day, I think he's still probably the only little man in the modern era to win the NBA Finals MVP award. Steph Curry's never done it.
basketball, and you
Yes.
have only 4 other teammates
Yes.
as opposed to 10 other teammates in your sport.
Yes.
4 other teammates. You are the superstar. You are the runaway, slam dunk, unanimous MVP.
Right.
And you need that much help in Saturday's fourth quarter to get you home. They just carried him. They just picked him up and carried him home.
Right, but Dame played well enough that I'm not going to nitpick that one. He scored 31 points. It's not like he scored 9 points.
Skip it happens.
Okay.
I mean, it's like a quarterback. He doesn't necessarily have to throw for like 300 yards every game, but sometimes it's key first downs that he gets. Sometimes he scrambles, he uses his legs, and then sometimes he carries out a fake, holds the end, and the back gets the first down. Skip, you can't look at Dame and the guy's averaging 30. I mean, let that sink in. He's averaging over 5 threes a game. Can I interest you in that, Skip? That's 5 threes a game. Can I interest you in that?
I'd like to be interested in that in a playoff game because I
Agreed.
Hold on. We're not talking about no.
We're about to.
Like you told me. Wait a minute. You just told me when I said the reason why Portland was able to advance is because the last game before the season stopped, they beat Phoenix. You told me that didn't count. So the playoff doesn't.
It doesn't count because we're talking about the bubble MVP. That's what we're talking about.
When it comes to the MVP of the bubble. So we'll discuss that at a later date and time. This is not the day, this is not the time. So right now the bubble MVP is dollar.
Somewhere Devin Booker is just shaking his head and saying to himself, I will remember this.
You know what we'll do, Skip? You know what? To make you feel good, to make everybody, we'll sit him that trophy. Because we got bigger trophies that we tried to get to.
Really, you must.
Well, you know who he's going to be playing in the first round. Right, Shannon Sharp, James? You see, Shannon talks so much shit, he forgets about who he's aligned to.
Well, that's what we try to do.
Yeah.
Hold on. Do you actually think we went down there seeking to win a bubble MVP? Is that what we went down there for?
Now it's we.
Went down there with the sole purpose of getting into the playoffs. He was able to lead his team. That's what he did. You can say CJ, you can say Melo, you can say Gary Trent Jr., Nurkic, all you want to. But without that guy, virtuoso, on 3 different occasions, they're not here. You know that, I know that.
No virtuosos. You got to finish virtuosos.
Skip Bayless.
They weren't finished.
Hold on.
No, he's had a few virtuosos in the bubble, Skip Bayless. Knock it off.
Telling me a 51-7, a 61-8, and a 42-12 isn't virtuoso? And Skip, the man took one dribble past half court and let it go.
That's it. That did it. That won him MVP.
No, stop it.
Yeah. No, it did. Seriously.
No, it did not.
Yeah. A lot of people think that was the shot of the bubble when the shot that Devin Booker took and made simply beat the Clippers.
Skip, it's not the first shot.
Wow.
I understand that the Civil War started in the fire of the Harper's Ferry. But that was the first shot. That was a shot. But that wasn't the war. That was okay. Booker hit a shot. Dame hit a shot. But that wasn't the playoffs.
Did Dame hit a shot against the same team? Clippers?
Oh my
goodness, no.
So in other words, let me ask, I just want to know one thing.
Yep.
How long are you going to hold that against Dame? Are you going
until he wins something. Until he wins something. If you want to quiet your critics, the best way to quiet them is to be a winner.
To him for the rest of his career?
This is over. This is the last time we talk about this. But we are going to talk about his playoff resume, aren't we?
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Of course.
But anyway, that's basically it on that, brothers. We'll see how things go for Dame over the course of the playoffs. We'll also have to make sure that we pay attention to how much growth Devin Booker's going to show next season.